Liability compels performance. The only reason why that man or woman wakes up every day and go to a job that he or she doesn't like is because of the liability involved. If he or she does not go to work, they won't be able to pay their bills. They won't be able to have a roof over their head. They won't be able to fill their belly. We know, or at least through experience, most of us should know that the majority of the reason why most of us suffer is because we constantly seek food and shelter. And we get stuck in a cycle of looking for something or some ways to satisfy those two things. And there's nothing wrong with it. But the liability behind not having the resource to satisfy those needs is what compels performance, even if you don't like those jobs or the activities that you're doing in order to get those things that you need. Same applies with things of this nature. If you cannot demonstrate liability, no performance will be done. All these so-called administrative processes that you're doing, if you cannot show that liability exists, and if you don't know what liability constitutes, and if you're not ready to take those steps to hold them liable, they are not going to perform. It is that simple. Here are some of the things that would basically make them realize that you cannot hold them liable. For instance, any given criminal case, or even civil or family court, whatever it is, if you've pled guilty in the past, if you've put a bunch of sovereign citizen papers in, and you finally figured it out and you're trying to do something right now, the odds of them performing after you've initially entered with some other things that really does nothing, the odds of you successfully holding them liable and successfully making them perform because they know that they will be held liable is low. Even if now you're aware of how to hold them liable, it's going to be hard for you to make them perform because they've seen how you've entered, which brings us to another thing: your entry game. Your entry game must always be strong. Not your pull-out game, but your entry game must always be strong. The way that you come in, we're not talking about standing up capacity now, even though it could be part of it, but the first few pieces of paper that you put into any given interaction in any public venue is what determines the temperament and the pace of how the court case will go. The first few pieces of paper that you put in any criminal, civil, or any other case is what is going to determine and act as a foundation of how everything else is going to go, and that everything else constitutes how they respond to you, how they view you. If you come in with some BS to begin with and you later on put in the right things, they are not going to take you serious. And if they do, they're going to test you. And when they test you and you fail, they're going to realize that you don't really know. So if there's any case open against you, sometimes if you hadn't said anything at all and you've kept quiet, you very well might be in a better situation than someone to put it in and just trying everything. They're just trying it. They're just trying everything they can, just filing all these different papers. And the more paper you file to get to the point, the more they realize you don't know what you're doing. Now, unless you're doing an appeal whereby you basically have to print a copy of the stuff in a docket, then you would have no choice but to have stacks and stacks of paper. But if you're trying to get one point across and you're going on 10 pages just because of a cease and desist notice, or because you're trying to move them to dismiss, yeah. But just remember, liability is the only thing that's going to compel performance. So anytime you're beginning to create any paperwork or using some template, read it and ask yourself this question: is there anything within this that if they don't honor it, that I can hold them liable against? Now, remove your own delusional perspective of what you think liability is, and try to imagine in your mind the actual process of you holding them liable, and see if it really works. If you're just dabbling and guessing, and you really can't hold them liable against that paper if they dishonor it, you're setting yourself up for a world of a lot of pain, a waste of time, and a waste of energy. But always keep in mind, liability is the only thing that compels performance. Best of luck.